Wife secretly plans her new life with her rich affair partner, but it backfired, because I gathered evidence of her plans and froze all our accounts the day she left me. Now she's begging me to her back. I, 29M, and my wife Nancy, 27F, I work full-time and my wife also working, but last weekend, I overheard my wife talking to her friend about our marriage while I came downstairs to take some drinks. She was talking in that way she does when she thinks nobody important is listening, that tone she uses when she talks about people she doesn't like at work or when she complains about my family. So I stayed there and listened. Nancy was telling her friend Monica that living with me felt like being trapped in a cage and that she couldn't stand pretending to be happy anymore. She said I was boring and predictable and that she felt like she was wasting the best years of her life. Then they started talking about Aaron, the affair partner of my wife. Monica said something about how Aaron was always the one that got away, and Nancy laughed and said that Aaron understood her in ways I never could. She said Aaron was exciting and spontaneous and that when she talked to him she felt alive again. Nancy told them that Aaron had gotten a promotion at his company and was making good money now and that he had his own apartment in the city. I stood there listening to my wife of 3 years talk about me like I was some kind of disease she needed to cure herself of. Nancy said she had been planning to leave me for weeks and that she was just waiting for the right time. She said she wanted to make sure she had everything lined up perfectly before she made her move because she didn't want to end up struggling financially. Monica asked about our house and our shared bank accounts, and Nancy said she had already talked to a lawyer about what she was entitled to. She said the lawyer told her that since we had been married for 3 years and she had been working part-time while I worked full-time, she could probably get alimony and half of everything we owned. Nancy said she was going to wait until after our anniversary next month to file for divorce because it would look better if she could say we had been married for over 3 years. Nancy told her that Aaron had been texting her every day and that they had been meeting for lunch when I was at work. She said they hadn't done anything physical yet, but that the emotional connection was stronger than ever. Nancy said that she had been putting money aside in a separate account that I didn't know about and that she had been slowly moving some of her important things to her sister's house so I wouldn't notice when she finally left. She said she was planning to tell me she needed some space to think about our marriage and then she would move out temporarily, but really she was never coming back. Monica asked if Nancy felt bad about lying to me, and Nancy said she didn't owe me anything because I had trapped her in a loveless marriage. She said I was controlling and possessive and that I never let her be herself. Nancy said I was always questioning where she was going and who she was with and that it made her feel suffocated. I almost laughed out loud when she said that because I never questioned her about anything. I trusted her completely and always had. If she said she was going somewhere I never asked for details and I never checked up on her. Nancy was projecting her own guilt onto me and making me out to be some kind of villain so she could justify what she was planning to do. Nancy said that Aaron made her feel beautiful and desired and that when she was with him she remembered who she used to be before she settled down with me. She said I never surprised her or did anything romantic and that our relationship had become routine and boring. I realized that my wife had been planning to destroy our marriage for weeks and that she had been lying to my face every single day. She had been meeting with her ex behind my back and plotting to take half of everything I had worked for. Nancy was treating our marriage like it was some kind of business transaction that she wanted to get out of with the best possible deal for herself. They kept talking for another hour and I learned that Nancy had been complaining about me to her friends for months. She said I was lazy around the house even though I did most of the cleaning and all of the yard work. She said I was cheap even though I paid for everything and never complained when she spent money on things she wanted. Nancy made me sound like some kind of monster who was holding her back from her dreams. I went upstairs to our bedroom and sat on the bed trying to process everything I had just heard. My wife had been living a double life and planning to leave me for her ex-boyfriend while pretending everything was fine between us. She had been meeting with lawyers and moving money around and setting up her exit strategy like she was planning a military operation. When Nancy came inside later that evening she acted completely normal. She asked me how my day was and if I wanted to order Chinese food for dinner. She told me about her book club meeting and said they had discussed some novel about a woman who leaves her husband to find herself. The irony was so thick I could barely stand it, but I played along and acted like nothing had changed. That night Nancy crawled into bed next to me and said she loved me, and I just stared at the ceiling thinking about how she had been lying to me for weeks. She had been planning to rip my life apart while telling me she loved me every night. I realized that everything about our marriage had been fake and that the woman I thought I knew didn't actually exist. I decided right then that I wasn't going to be the victim in this situation. Nancy thought she was so smart with her secret plans and her lawyer consultations, but she had no idea that I knew everything. She was planning to blindside me and leave me scrambling to pick up the pieces, but instead I was going to be the one who was prepared. I stayed awake all night thinking about what I needed to do, and by morning I had a plan of my own. Update 1. Nancy has no idea that I know about her plans and she's been acting like nothing has changed. She still kisses me goodbye when she leaves for work and asks me about my day when she gets home. She's been texting constantly though and always puts her phone face down when I'm around. When it buzzes she grabs it immediately and takes it to the bathroom or outside to check her messages. I hired a private investigator the day after I overheard her conversation with her friends. The guy's name is Marcus and he used to be a cop before he started his own business. I told him everything I heard and he said it sounded like a pretty standard case of a spouse planning to leave and trying to maximize their settlement. Marcus said the best thing I could do was document everything and get ahead of the situation legally. Marcus has been following Nancy when she leaves work and he's confirmed that she's been meeting Aaron at least 3 times a week. They go to restaurants and coffee shops and sometimes they sit in his car in parking lots and talk. Marcus took pictures of them holding hands and hugging and kissing. In one photo Aaron has his hand on Nancy's leg while they're sitting in a booth at some diner across town. I also started checking our bank accounts and credit card statements more carefully. Nancy has been taking out cash regularly and I found charges for restaurants and stores that I know I didn't go to. She bought new clothes and lingerie that I've never seen her wear at home. There was a charge for a hotel room last weekend when she told me she was visiting her sister. I called the hotel and pretended to be confirming a reservation for Aaron and they told me that a couple had checked in under his name and stayed for one night. Marcus confirmed that Nancy's car was in the hotel parking lot that whole evening. So much for nothing physical happening yet. I met with 3 different divorce lawyers and picked the one who seemed the most aggressive. Her name is Patricia Walsh and she's been handling divorce cases for 20 years. Patricia said that since I found out about the affair before Nancy filed for divorce, I was in a much better position than if she had surprised me. She said the fact that Nancy was planning to wait until our anniversary to file showed that she was calculating and strategic, which would work against her in court. Patricia told me that Nancy's secret bank account could be considered hiding assets, especially if she had been using our joint money to fund it. She said the affair would likely impact any alimony claim Nancy might make and that the evidence Marcus was gathering would be crucial. Patricia started preparing all the paperwork so that I could file immediately if Nancy tried to leave or if I decided I was ready to end the charade. I also found out that Aaron isn't quite the success story Nancy thinks he is. I did some digging and discovered that his promotion came with a transfer to a different state and that his company is planning to relocate him in 6 months. I don't know if Nancy knows about this or if Aaron has been lying to her about his situation. Meanwhile, Nancy has been dropping hints about wanting to redecorate the house and talking about taking a vacation together. She suggested we go to couples therapy to work on our communication, which is hilarious considering she's been lying to me about everything. Nancy keeps asking me about my work schedule and seems disappointed when I tell her I don't have any business trips coming up. Last week Nancy told me she was thinking about going back to school to finish her degree and that she wanted to look into programs that would require her to spend more time away from home. She said she felt like she had lost herself in our marriage and needed to rediscover her independence. I just nodded and told her I supported whatever would make her happy. The hardest part is pretending that everything is normal when I know she's planning to destroy everything we built together. Nancy makes dinner and we watch TV together and she acts like she's the loving wife when really she's counting down the days until she can escape. Sometimes I catch her staring off into space with this little smile on her face and I know she's thinking about Aaron and her new life without me. I've been documenting everything in a journal that I keep at work. Every lie she tells me, every time she comes home late, every suspicious phone call or text message. Patricia said this would help establish a pattern of deception that we could use in court. I also started recording some of our conversations on my phone when Nancy talks about money or the house or our future plans. Nancy's sister called me last week and made some comment about how Nancy seemed happier lately and was talking about making some big changes in her life. I realized that Nancy's whole family probably knows about her plans and they're all just waiting for her to pull the trigger. The thought of all of them sitting around talking about what a fool I am makes my blood boil. I found out that Nancy has been telling people at work that our marriage is in trouble and that she's not sure if we're going to make it. Her coworker Lisa let it slip when I ran into her at the grocery store. Lisa said she hoped Nancy and I could work things out and that sometimes marriages go through rough patches. I had no idea Nancy had been bad-mouthing our relationship to everyone she knows. The private investigator Marcus also discovered that Aaron has been divorced twice and that his ex-wives both accused him of cheating. Apparently Aaron has a pattern of pursuing married women and then discarding them when he gets bored. I'm almost looking forward to Nancy finding out what kind of man she's throwing her marriage away for. I've been going to the gym every day after work to blow off steam and I've started eating better and taking better care of myself. If Nancy wants to leave me for someone else, then I'm going to make sure I'm in the best shape of my life when this all goes down. I've lost 15 pounds and several people at work have commented on how good I look. Nancy asked me yesterday if I was having a midlife crisis because I've been working out so much and buying new clothes. I told her I was just trying to take better care of myself and she said it was about time. The nerve of this woman to criticize me for improving myself while she's sneaking around with her ex-boyfriend is unbelievable. I'm getting close to being ready to file for divorce myself. Patricia has all the paperwork prepared and Marcus has gathered enough evidence to prove the affair. I'm just waiting for the right moment to drop the bomb and watch Nancy's carefully planned exit strategy blow up in her face. Update 2. Nancy left this morning exactly like she planned except everything went wrong for her. She came downstairs with 2 suitcases and told me she needed some time apart to figure out what she wanted from our marriage. She said she was going to stay with her sister for a few weeks and that we should use this time to think about whether we wanted to try to work things out. I sat there drinking my coffee and listening to her rehearse speech about needing space and finding herself. Nancy kept looking at me like she expected me to break down and beg her to stay, but I said I understood. She seemed surprised that I wasn't more upset and kept asking if I was okay. Nancy said she would call me in a few days and that maybe we could meet for coffee to talk about our relationship. She hugged me goodbye and said she loved me and hoped we could figure things out. The whole performance was so fake I almost started laughing, but I kept my mouth shut and let her finish her act. 5 minutes after Nancy left, I called Patricia and told her to file the divorce papers immediately. Then I called the bank and froze all of our joint accounts and credit cards. Patricia had already prepared restraining orders for our house and car and bank accounts, so Nancy couldn't touch anything or come back to take more of her stuff without supervision. Nancy called me screaming about an hour later when she tried to use our credit card to put gas in her car and it got declined. She demanded to know what I had done, and I told her I had filed for divorce and that she was no longer authorized to access our joint finances. Nancy started yelling that I couldn't do that and that half of everything was hers. I told Nancy that I knew about Erin and that I had been documenting her affair for weeks. She went completely silent for about 10 seconds and then started screaming that I was a psycho for spying on her. Nancy said I had violated her privacy and that she was going to tell everyone what kind of controlling freak I really was. I told her that her lawyer could contact my lawyer and that she shouldn't come back to the house without arranging it through Patricia first. Nancy hung up on me and then called back 5 minutes later crying and saying we needed to talk in person. I told her there was nothing to talk about and that she had made her choice when she decided to cheat on me with Erin. Nancy called me 12 more times over the next few hours and sent about 30 text messages. She went from angry to sad to angry again and kept saying I was ruining everything and that I didn't understand the situation. In one message she said she had made a mistake and wanted to come home and work things out. In another message she called me a vindictive asshole who was trying to destroy her life. Erin apparently found out about the divorce filing and the frozen accounts because Nancy called me crying later that evening. She said Erin was having second thoughts about their relationship and that he didn't want to get involved in a messy divorce situation. Nancy begged me to unfreeze the accounts and withdraw the divorce papers so we could handle this privately. I told Nancy that she decided to meet Erin behind my back and plan her exit strategy. She kept saying she never meant for things to go this far and that she was confused about what she wanted. Nancy said Erin had pressured her into thinking she was unhappy and that she realized now that she had made a terrible mistake. The private investigator Marcus delivered copies of all the photos and evidence to Nancy's lawyer this morning. Patricia said Nancy's lawyer called her within an hour and said they wanted to discuss a settlement immediately. Apparently the evidence of the affair is so clear that there's no point in trying to deny it or fight for alimony. Nancy's sister called me this afternoon and tried to convince me to give Nancy another chance. She said Nancy realized she had thrown away the best thing in her life for a fantasy. I told her that Nancy had been planning to leave me for weeks and that she only regretted it now because her plan had backfired. I found out from Marcus that Erin has been telling his friends that Nancy is too clingy and dramatic for his taste. Apparently Erin thought he was getting involved with an independent woman who was leaving her husband, not someone who expected him to take care of her financially and emotionally. Erin told someone at his work that Nancy was acting like they were already in a serious relationship when he just wanted to have some fun. Nancy showed up at my work this afternoon and security had to escort her out because she was causing a scene in the lobby. She was crying and saying she just wanted to talk to me for 5 minutes, but I had already told security not to let her upstairs. My coworkers were all staring and asking what was going on, but I just said it was a personal matter. Patricia told me that Nancy's lawyer is pushing for a quick settlement because they know the affair evidence makes their position very weak. Nancy is asking for spousal support, but Patricia said there's almost no chance she'll get it given the circumstances. The house will probably have to be sold and the proceeds split, but Nancy won't get the big payout she was planning on. I changed the locks on the house and had a security system installed this morning. I also opened new bank accounts that only I have access to and moved all of my money there. Nancy can't get into the house or access any of our former joint assets without going through the legal process. The best part is that I found out Erin's company is definitely transferring him to another state next month and he hasn't told Nancy yet. Marcus overheard Erin talking to his boss about the logistics of the move and how excited he was to start fresh in a new city. Nancy has no idea that her BF is about to disappear and leave her with nothing. I was walking around knowing that my wife was planning to betray me and now everything is out in the open. Nancy thought she was so clever with her secret planning, but she never considered that I might find out and beat her to the punch. All of Nancy's friends who were supporting her affair are now acting like they barely know her. Monica haven't returned her calls and her sister is the only one still talking to her. Even Nancy's mother called me to apologize for her daughter's behavior and said she was ashamed of how Nancy had handled the situation. Update 3. Erin dumped Nancy 6 weeks ago when he moved to Portland for his job transfer. Nancy had no idea he was leaving until he told her 3 days before he moved that their relationship had run its course and that he thought it was best if they made a clean break. Nancy called me sobbing that night and said Aaron had used her and that she realized now what kind of person he really was. Nancy thought Aaron was going to take her with him to Portland and that they were going to start a new life together. She had been telling everyone that she was going to move across the country with her soulmate and that everything had worked out perfectly. When Aaron told her he was leaving alone, Nancy completely lost it and showed up at his apartment building screaming and crying until the police came. The divorce was finalized last month and Nancy got almost nothing. She had to pay her own legal fees and she only got a small portion of the house sale proceeds after all the debts were paid off. Nancy's secret bank account turned out to have less than $3,000 in it because she had been spending most of the money she was hiding on clothes and hotels and dinners with Aaron. Nancy is living in a tiny studio apartment across town and working full-time at a job she hates because she can't afford not to. She had to sell her car and buy an older used one because she couldn't make the payments on her own. All of her grand plans for her new independent life fell apart when she realized that Aaron wasn't going to support her financially. I found out from her sister that Nancy has been struggling to pay her bills and that she had to borrow money from her parents to cover her first month's rent. Nancy's credit got ruined when she couldn't pay the credit card bills that were in her name and she had to file for bankruptcy protection. The woman who was planning to take half of everything I owned ended up with less money than when she started. Nancy has been calling and texting me constantly for the past month begging me to take her back. She says she was going through some kind of midlife crisis and that she never stopped loving me. Nancy claims that Aaron manipulated her into thinking she was unhappy and that she was too confused to see what was really happening. Last week Nancy showed up at my house with flowers and a letter explaining how sorry she was and how much she regretted throwing away our marriage. I didn't even read the letter and I told her through the door that she needed to leave or I would call the police. Nancy sat in her car outside my house for 2 hours crying before she finally drove away. Nancy sent me a long email yesterday saying that she realized she had sabotaged the best relationship she ever had because she was afraid of commitment. She said the therapist told her that running away with Aaron was her way of avoiding real intimacy and that she wanted to do the work to become a better person. Nancy destroyed our marriage because she thought she deserved more than what we had together, but she ended up with less than nothing. I got my freedom and a chance to build something real with someone who actually values me.